by the Montana Television Network. Montana This Morning continues on Montana's News Leader.
President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, will spend nearly 4 years in prison. I'm Laura Podesta. I'll tell you what the judge said was behind his decision to shorten Manafort's time behind bars.
A destructive awakening for students and faculty here at Montana State University when a gym roof collapsed. I'm Cody Boyer here in Bozeman with the latest from the public relations here, as well as what students are reacting with coming up.
I'm Mike Dennison at the Capitol. I'll tell you about some bills that are no more at the legislature.
It is 6:30 here on your Friday. Good morning to you, and we start with the former campaign chairman, President Trump, sentenced to 47 months in prison yesterday. Last year, Paul Manafort was found guilty of tax and bank fraud, and as Laura Podesta reports for CBS, his sentencing was far shorter than what he could have received.
President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was sentenced Thursday to nearly 4 years in prison. It's the longest sentence handed down as part of special counsel Robert Mueller's investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 election. The 69-year-old was convicted on 8 counts of tax and bank fraud related to his work for Ukrainian politicians.
There is absolutely no evidence that Paul Manafort was involved with any collusion with any government official from Russia.
A source tells CBS News Manafort is banking on a presidential pardon.
I think the whole Manafort trial is very sad.
Last August, Mr. Trump said it was not off the table.
He worked for me for a very short period of time. But you know what? He happens to be a very good person.
The 47-month sentence is far less than the 24 years Manafort could have gotten. Judge T.S. Ellis said that was unwarranted and excessive.
We have a criminal justice system that treats you better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. Democratic
presidential candidate Cory Booker reacted to the sentencing during a taping of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert.
Were you shocked that he only got 47
No,
months?
This criminal justice system can't surprise me anymore.
The reaction was similar on social media, with lawyers and advocates pointing out lesser crimes that ended with harsher sentences. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
Now, it's not over for Manafort just yet. Next week, he faces another sentencing in Washington, D.C. in a separate case related to illegal lobbying. Now, that judge will decide whether Manafort serves his 2-year sentences at the same time or whether they should be served consecutively. So we'll be following that. Matt Elwell joins me now. Chet Lehman is off today calling basketball games, doing one of his many other callings.
Yeah.
So, Matt, switching gears to the weather, boy, last night came in and that black ice kind of took over.
It is nasty. Last night I had a friend that said he counted 32 cars between Belgrade and 19th off the road, so pretty amazing. This morning you may have some similar issues, temperatures down below freezing. We've had some reports of black ice from Belgrade back toward Three Forks early this morning. We also have snow being reported on Bozeman Pass, Homestake Pass, and down the Gallatin Canyon. That's kind of not surprising because we do have some light snow in the area, but our temperatures are going to remain pretty chilly. I do expect to see some heavier snow, especially east of the Divide, as you head through the day today. We'll talk more in depth about your forecast, of course, coming up in just a few minutes.
Thank you for that, Matt. Now 6:33, and let's stay on topic. This morning on I-90 near Jackson Creek, it was closed for a while around 2 a.m. when a semi-crash blocked both lanes after a big accident. The road has now reopened. There was a multi-car pileup on I-90 near Belgrade last night. It caused the westbound lanes to be shut down. The Montana Highway Patrol reported at least 11 cars were involved in that pileup, plus 8 slide-off fender benders. Now, the first vehicle tried to slow down. The next car also hit its brakes quickly, but the following vehicle was attempting to slow down and then ran into those first 2 cars, causing a domino effect. Now, fortunately, there were no injuries reported. An ambulance did arrive on the scene for one person who then denied medical assistance. And it was a shocking morning yesterday on the campus of Montana State University after the entire roof of one of its fitness centers collapsed. Crews were on the scene just before 3 in the morning and assessing that damage at the South Gym Fitness Complex. Again, thankfully, no one was injured. And MTN's Cody Boyer was on the scene as the school officials continue to try to figure out what happened.
It's a tremendous shock. I mean, no one expected to wake up to a roof missing from a gymnasium this morning.
It started with a call at around 2:20 Thursday morning. MSU spokesperson Michael Becker says crews from Bozeman Fire Department and MSU Campus Police responded only to find a gaping hole where the South Gym's roof used to be.
Overnight, we had emergency responders on scene, making sure that everything was safe as could possibly be. That means turning off utilities, it means taking care of electrical, and assessing the situation.
Now Michael says that it was the entire roof that did cave in, and it caused a lot of damage to the floor as well inside that South Gym. While they are going to take a while to figure out what exactly caused this, students say this place was incredibly important to them.
We usually go to the gym every morning, and he said, hey, we're not going to be able to go to the gym today. Do you want the good news or the bad news?
Stephanie Stanger says she and her husband relied on the complex every day as a study hall and a place just to get warm.
Oh, so important. This is like 100% of my day. I'll go, I study there. It's like I get everything done at the gym. Plus they have the fire. It's the only place on campus that has the fire.
We're assessing the structural integrity of the rest of the walls of the building, of that gymnasium, and that's an assessment that's ongoing.
Becker says that is why all buildings connected to the South Gym will be closed until further notice. Importantly, the building was closed at the time and no one was hurt.
MSU is immensely grateful that we had no injuries from this event.
It's a real bummer. I hope they get it up and running and we can get back in it soon.
Becker did tell us that the university would be notifying faculty and students over social media as to the progress of the cleanup and the investigation. Crews will also be checking the surrounding buildings like Schroyer Gym and the Field House to make sure they were not impacted by this. In Bozeman, Cody Boyer, MTN News.
Thank you for that, Corey. Now, the state of Montana requires all buildings to meet certain standards when constructed to prevent structural damage from snowpack. With the heavy snowpack this winter, home and business owners are advised to know the warning signs of potential damage. Now, according to FEMA, 1 foot of snow depth can range from 3 to 21 pounds per square foot depending upon the moisture content. Montana code requires a minimum snow load of 30 pounds per square foot for new buildings. Structural engineer Aubrey Yerger says that a roof collapse is relatively uncommon, but people should be concerned if they see sagging in the roof, new cracking in the interior, water leaks, or even ice dams.
Especially as we're starting to get into those warmer temperatures, ice dams that have accumulated near the edge of your roof that would prevent snow from sliding off.
Now, Yerger says if people are concerned about the amount of snow on their own roof, they should contact a contractor to remove it or make sure there is no inadvertent damage is caused. Now, with the cold weather that has been blasting Montana lately, you may be wondering why you've seen a bit of change with your propane bills. Now, the cold snap is overwhelming for propane companies. Ken Westcamp of Madison River Propane in Belgrade says companies like his are still trying to use their typical winter pricing despite the extreme temperatures. The colder temps divert natural gas from refineries for residential use, and natural gas is used to make propane. Now that can affect those prices. Westcamp says despite all this, his company is receiving a rate of calls that's hard to keep up with.
We experienced this last cold snap. We were averaging about 150 calls an hour, taking calls of people wanted a delivery right away. Typically when you called in, we would try to make those deliveries within a day or two, and now we're pushed back about 2 weeks.
Now, Westcamp does add that delays could be shortened if customers clear their driveways and the snow from around their tanks. And halfway through the 2019 Montana legislature, lawmakers are preparing to zero in on the big issues like Medicaid expansion and the state's budget. But in the first half of that session, lawmakers killed a lot of bills as well. MTN's Mike Dennison gives us the rundown on some of those proposals that got the axe.
Nearly 1,000 bills have been introduced so far at the legislature, but 244 of those bills are listed as probably dead, including some that we've covered here at MTN News. A bill to abolish the death penalty in Montana, another one creating paid family leave for Montana workers, and one to allow online voter registration. Those were all killed in committee. Many of these bygone bills died in committee on partisan votes, with majority Republicans voting to table them. But some died on bipartisan votes, like Democrat Tom Woods' proposal to deregulate electric utilities in Montana. It was killed on a unanimous vote in committee. And some Republicans and Democrats on the Senate Taxation Committee also voted to table Republican Representative Forrest Mandeville's bill requiring at least a 2/3 vote of either house to approve a tax increase. A proposal to study legalization of marijuana in Montana in advance of a possible ballot measure next year to legalize the drug, that died in committee. So did a pair of bills requiring more protections for those falsely accused or convicted in criminal cases. A bill supported by the Supreme Court and district judges around the state to create a new fund to help poor Montanans in civil legal actions, it died on a partisan committee vote, with Republicans against it. So did a bill that would expand Montana's anti-discrimination law to cover sexual orientation. And finally, we saw the defeat of bills that would have eliminated compulsory education for children in Montana, raised the minimum liability limits on car insurance, and required country of origin placards for beef and pork sold in Montana. But we still have more than 700 bills alive and kicking at the session, and probably a few more to be introduced. In less than 2 months, however, their fate will be decided, and more than a few of them will bite the dust. Reporting from the Capitol, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Now, the second half of the legislature does begin on Monday. It is time for a quick break. In a moment, we head to Colorado, where Mother Nature and human-triggered avalanches are wreaking havoc. But before we head on down to the Centennial Estate, let's head to New York to see your headlines coming up at 7.
Good morning. Ahead here on CBS This Morning, part 2 of our exclusive interview with Arizona Senator Martha McSally. How her sexual assault while in the Air Force propelled her to fight for change. Plus, only on CBS This Morning, the surprise meeting between Steph Curry and Riley Morrison. Remember, she's the 9-year-old who called out the NBA star for not marketing shoes to girls. Well, how Curry is now fulfilling his promise to do so on this International Women's Day. We'll see you right at 7.